Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a really fascinating case study in urban planning. We're going to break down how the city of Tshwane in South Africa is doing something pretty radical. Instead of just letting its economy grow by chance, it's actually trying to strategically design its own economic future. It's a huge vision for a modern city.
So that brings up the big question, right? Most cities just sort of happen. They grow organically, sometimes a little chaotically. But Tshwane is taking a totally different path. They've got this ambitious plan to build their economy with real purpose, targeting specific industries and then connecting them directly to the people who need those jobs the most.
And the whole strategy is built on this one core idea: specialized activity areas. Just think of these as like supercharged economic zones. They're not just a random bunch of businesses. No, these are intentionally designed clusters. We're talking massive industrial parks, cutting-edge research campuses, busy logistics hubs, all created with one main goal: generate a ton of jobs and get the economic engine roaring.
Okay, so that's the big idea, specialized activity areas. But what does that actually look like on the ground? Where are these so-called economic engines, and what really makes them tick? In our first section here, we're going to pull out the map and really explore the physical landscape of Tshwane's economic strategy. Let's see how these hubs are laid out.
So the city's plan isn't a one-size-fits-all kind of deal. It's actually pretty clever. It identifies 4 totally distinct types of economic nodes, and each one plays its own vital role. You've got your heavy-hitting industrial estates like Roslyn and Waltloo. That's the manufacturing backbone. Then you've got the brain power over in the research and innovation hubs, like the CSIR, which is where a huge chunk of South Africa's R&D happens. You also need those critical logistics anchors like Wonderboom Airport. And of course, you can't forget the cultural and economic drivers like the tourism site in Cullinan. Every single one is a crucial piece of this giant economic puzzle.
And this slide, zeroes in on a brilliant example: the automotive sector. This isn't just about building one factory, it's about creating this powerful self-reinforcing system. So in one quadrant, Roslyn/Wonderboom, you've got the Tshwane Automotive City, which is assembling the final vehicles for huge companies like BMW and Nissan. Then in another quadrant, Waltloo/Silverton, you've got the Tshwanes. That's a special economic zone, creating all the world-class parts that feed those assembly lines. It's a perfectly designed industrial ecosystem.
And this just makes so much sense, right? A car plant is pretty useless if you can't get parts in and then get the finished cars out. The city's plan totally gets this, which is why they're creating a powerful logistics backbone. They are strategically linking a major freight hub at Pyramid South with Wonderboom Airport and the Automotive City itself. This creates what economists call an agglomeration of economies, basically a powerful corridor where everything moves fast, efficiently, and cheaply, making the entire region way more competitive.
So, we've seen the map. We've got the physical layout of these economic engines. But a blueprint is one thing. Making it all happen takes some serious resources. And that brings us to our next section, where we've got to ask, how exactly is Tshwane funding this grand vision and turning all these plans into actual concrete, steel, and most importantly, jobs?
Well, it all starts with a very clear guiding principle. Everything we're talking about is driven by the city's third strategic priority, which you see right here. And this isn't just some vague mission statement on a wall somewhere. It's the actual political and administrative mandate that directs every single decision. The goal is to actively create an environment where businesses want to invest, and crucially, where they create jobs for the people who live in the city.
And here's the key thing to understand. It's a subtle but incredibly important shift in focus. The city's budget decisions aren't just about what's going to bring in the most tax revenue. Instead, they are prioritizing investment in sectors that are job-absorbing. Think industries like manufacturing that create a large number of stable, long-term jobs. It's an investment in people over just short-term cash for the city's bank account.
And here's the proof that they're actually putting their money where their mouth is. Now, 5% might not sound like a huge number by itself, but dedicating a full 5% of the city's entire massive capital budget specifically to these big strategic projects, that's a major commitment. This is the seed money, the public funds that build the essential stuff like roads, power, and water, which then makes the area way less risky and attracts massive private investment to projects like the Automotive City.
And this commitment isn't happening in a vacuum. It's getting supercharged by major grants from other levels of government. This number you see here, over 485 million rand, that's just one example. It's a huge cash injection from the provincial government, specifically to get the infrastructure finished at that Tshwane automotive hub. It really shows there's a coordinated effort here to make these economic nodes a huge success.
All right, so we've mapped out the economic engines, and we've followed the money. But that leads us to what is maybe
the most important question of all. How does this high-level economic plan actually help the average person living in Tshwane? Let's dig into how the plan connects people to all these new opportunities.
And this slide just perfectly illustrates the central challenge that Tshwane, and honestly so many cities, is trying to solve, what they call the mobility gap. See, on one side, you've got all the new jobs popping up in these big economic nodes, which are often out on the edge of the city. But on the other side, you've got large communities where many people live far away from those opportunities. And that gap creates these long, expensive commutes that are a major barrier to getting a job.
So what's the fix? Well, it's not just about creating jobs, it's about creating access to those jobs. The city is tackling this with a very deliberate three-step approach. First, they identify and create integration zones. These are new mixed-use areas that literally bridge the distance between where people live and where they work. Second, they roll out efficient public transport, like the bus rapid transit system, to create physical corridors. And third, the whole point of this is to lower the cost of travel, which puts more money back into people's pockets at the end of the day.
And this is a really critical point. This is not about uncontrolled expansion and urban sprawl, which would only make that mobility gap even worse. The strategy specifically says they're focusing investment inside the city's existing urban edge. The goal is to build smarter, not just bigger. By strengthening the communities that are already there and connecting them to these job hubs, the plan aims to create a city that's more compact, more efficient, and more sustainable for everybody.
Okay, we've seen the map, we've seen the money, and we've seen the mobility plan that's designed to connect people to jobs. So, in our final section, we're going to pull all these different threads together and ask, what does this all really add up to? What is the ultimate vision here for building this new inclusive future for Tshwane?
And this shows that it's not just wishful thinking. It's a very methodical, structured process. You can see how it works. It starts with the really high-level vision, the big picture stuff in the Metropolitan Spatial Development Framework. Then that gets refined into the urban network strategy, which is where they identified those specific quadrants we talked about. And finally, all of that cascades down to these detailed, actionable precinct plans for each individual node, like the revitalization plan for the Babilage industrial node. It's a clear path from a big idea to real-world results.
So when you boil it all down, this entire blueprint is about something so much bigger than just economics. The grand vision is to transform what used to be these isolated islands of economic activity into a single, cohesive, integrated network. It's really a plan for social transformation. The hope is that by connecting people to opportunity, the city can build a more equitable future where your zip code doesn't decide your destiny.
You know, the biggest takeaway from Tshwane's plan is that cities don't have to just be passive observers of their own economic destiny. They can actually be the architects. They can design a future with real intention. Which, of course, leaves us with this final, really important question to think about. Can a detailed, top-down strategic blueprint like this truly succeed in building a more prosperous and, most importantly, a more inclusive city for all of its residents? Only time will tell.